Okay, let's dive right into this explainer on American Depository Receipts, or ADRs. Quick shout out to our sponsor, CertFuel. Seriously, if you're prepping for the Series 7, check out certfuel.com. They've got a full course with adaptive study quizzes, smart flashcards, and unlimited practice exams weighted exactly like the real thing to help you absolutely crush this test. All right, let's get into it. To really lock this concept in, we're going to use a story. Imagine Carla the customer. She storms into the office of Riley the rep, completely desperate to buy shares in some bizarre, hyper-niche European tech startup she just read about. But here's the catch. Carla absolutely does not want the nightmare of navigating foreign exchanges, dealing with overseas brokers, or trying to figure out European settlement systems. No way. She wants it easy, and she wants it priced in US dollars. So Riley introduces Carla to her new best friend, the American Depositary Receipt, or ADR. An ADR is simply a negotiable US dollar certificate issued by a US depository bank, and it represents a specific number of shares of a foreign company. Think of it like a wrapper. It lets US investors like Carla buy foreign stocks right here on US markets priced in good old US dollars. Here's the brilliant step-by-step flow of how an ADR is actually born. First, the actual foreign shares, they don't cross the ocean. They sit safely locked up with a custodian bank overseas in the company's home country. Step 2, a U.S. depository bank issues ADR certificates against those deposited shares. Third, those newly minted ADRs start trading on U.S. markets. And finally, Step 4, investors like Carla buy and sell them in U.S. dollars right through their regular brokerage accounts. Pretty slick, right? Sponsored versus unsponsored ADRs. But wait, we've got a compliance issue. Enter our third character, Sam, the supervisor. Sam pushes his glasses up his nose and asks a critical question. Did the foreign company actually agree to this ADR being created? This brings us to a massive distinction you need to know. On the left, we've got sponsored ADRs. This means the foreign company actively participated. They entered an agreement with the U.S. bank to set the whole thing up. It comes with higher transparency, full Securities and Exchange Commission reporting, and crucially, voting rights are typically passed right through to Carla. Now, on the right, unsponsored ADRs. This is when a depository bank basically goes rogue. They create the ADR with the foreign company's involvement at all. That means less transparency, minimal reporting, and usually zero voting rights for the investor. Watch out, because here comes a major exam trap. If a test question describes an ADR with zero company involvement and super limited disclosures, it's unsponsored. And because it's unsponsored, it trades over the counter, or OTC only. You will literally never find an unsponsored ADR listed on a major U.S. exchange. Don't let them trick you on that. Next up, the 3 ADR levels. So, if the ADR is sponsored, Carla has to navigate 3 different levels of regulation from the SEC. Think of this matrix as your ultimate cheat sheet for the exam. Let's break it down. Level 1 trades OTC only, has minimal SEC registration, and definitely cannot raise capital. Move up to level 2, and you're now on a U.S. stock exchange. This requires annual reports, but you still cannot raise capital. Level 3 is the big leagues. It trades on an exchange, requires full SEC registration, and this is the kicker. It is the only level that can raise new capital. As we move up these levels, the transparency and regulatory demands just get heavier and heavier. Now, here's a beautifully obscure compliance detail that Sam the supervisor absolutely geeks out over. Levels 2 and 3 require annual reports, right? Usually that means translating all their math into U.S. Generally Accepted Accounting Principles, or US GAAP. But if the foreign issuer already uses International Financial Reporting Standards, IFRS, as issued by the International Accounting Standards Board, they get a free pass. Yep, they do not need to reconcile their financial statements to US GAAP. It's a huge time saver for them. To permanently lock these 3 levels in your brain for exam day, just think of it like jumping into a pool. Level 1 is dipping a toe in. It's the most common, trades OTC only, minimal reporting. Level 2 is wading in. You're on an exchange, you're filing annual reports. Level 3, that's diving all the way in, full SEC registration and public offerings, the whole shebang. And that brings us to another huge exam trap. Let me repeat this because it is absolutely crucial. Only Level 3 ADRs can raise new capital through a public offering in the U.S. Levels 1 and 2 only trade existing shares. The test makers love to bait you with a scenario where a Level 2 ADR tries to raise new money. Do not fall for it. Currency risks and dividends. Let's shift gears to a totally new scenario.
Carla holds her ADR, she's thrilled, and the underlying foreign stock is performing flawlessly. It hasn't dropped a single cent in its home market. But Carla's portfolio value is somehow dropping. Why in the world would that happen?
Seriously, I want you to pause this explainer right now and think about this. Does buying an ADR in US dollars mean Carla is safe from foreign exchange rate fluctuations? Take a second. Gotcha. ADRs absolutely do not eliminate currency risk. This is a classic exam trap. See, the underlying shares are still priced in a foreign currency over in Europe or wherever the home country is. Even though Carla trades in US dollars, that exchange rate is always churning in the background. Let me prove this to you with one simple number, 80. Imagine a British company's shares are holding rock steady at exactly 80 pounds on their home exchange. This brilliantly illustrates the why behind currency risk. Let's look at the math. If we have a strong British pound, say it's trading at $1.30 per pound, those 80 pounds convert to $104 for Carla. But if the pound weakens against the dollar, dropping to $1.20, those exact same 80 pounds now only convert to $96. Think about that. The foreign stock price never moved. It stayed at 80 pounds. But because the home currency got weaker, the dollar value of Carla's ADR just got slashed. And hey, remember Carla from earlier? The exact same danger applies when she gets paid a dividend. The foreign company declares the dividend in their local foreign currency. The depository bank then takes that foreign cash, converts it to US dollars, and passes it on to Carla. This means Carla eats the loss if the dollar happens to be too strong that day, because the foreign currency will convert into fewer dollars. On top of that, the foreign country might skim a tax withholding off the top before the money even leaves the border. Rapid fire exam recap. Okay, shake it out, grab your coffee, and let's sprint through these takeaways. We are going to hit a rapid-fire recap of everything you absolutely need to nail this topic on test day. Recap point number 1, match the level to the capability. If a foreign company wants to raise brand new money in the US through a public offering, they have got to dive all the way in. Only a level 3 ADR can raise new capital. Recap point number 2, currency risk survives every single ADR structure. It genuinely does not matter if it's sponsored, unsponsored, level 1, 2, or 3. If the foreign currency drops against the US dollar, your ADR value drops. Currency risk is always breathing down your neck. Recap point number 3. If the depository bank acts completely alone, totally ignoring the foreign company, it is an unsponsored ADR. And remember, unsponsored ADRs are banished to the over-the-counter markets only, and they rarely pass any voting rights through to you, the investor. But wait, before we go, I want to leave you with one final, kind of provocative thought about Carla and those dividends. If a foreign government snatches taxes right out of Carla's ADR dividend before it even crosses the ocean, is that money just gone forever? Poof? Nope, it might actually qualify for a U.S. foreign tax credit to avoid double taxation. It's exactly the kind of clever, real-world loophole you'll need to spot on exam day. So next time you see a seemingly simple dividend question, ask yourself, who's really taking a cut before it hits the account? Keep that in mind, learn the underlying why, and you will absolutely crush this section. Thanks for hanging out for this explainer and happy studying.